Hello everyone, and welcome back to Behind the Bulletin. Tonight, we dive into a story that has sent shockwaves across the entertainment world. After a year-long relationship, Chae-min and Ryu have officially parted ways, but what's causing an even bigger stir are the new allegations suddenly dragging Yoona into the spotlight. What really happened behind the scenes? Why is Yoona's name suddenly at the center of these swirling rumors? And how did a quiet breakup erupt into one of the most talked about topics of the week? Stay with us, because we're uncovering the full story right now. The story began with a quiet announcement, too quiet for a couple who had once dazzled the public with their sweet and effortless chemistry. After 1 year together, Chae-min and Ryu confirmed their separation in a short, polished statement that felt more like a professionally crafted script than the end of a romance. Fans barely had time to absorb the news before something far more electrifying detonated across social media: whispers of unexpected allegations, threads pointing toward unexplained tensions, and one name rising through the chaos with startling speed: Yoona. What began as a breakup announcement suddenly twisted into a narrative brimming with speculation. Comment sections spiraled into storms. Theories stacked on top of one another. Reporters scrambled to decode fragments of information dropped by anonymous insiders. But to understand how the story ignited, it is necessary to return to the final weeks of the relationship, weeks now painted in a new, mysterious light. According to several fictional insiders close to the couple, the distance between Chae-min and Ryu began subtly. A skipped message here, a cancelled plan there. The kind of everyday cracks that don't signal disaster until they multiply. At first, Ryu attributed it to his workload, script readings, late-night rehearsals, endless promotional cycles. But then came moments that didn't align. Quiet contradictions in his explanations. Pauses in his voice when she asked simple questions. Something was shifting, and neither of them had the strength to confront it directly. Meanwhile, Yoona, busy with her own fictional project, entered their orbit unintentionally. She and Chae-min appeared briefly at the same industry dinner gathering filled with scripted warmth and orchestrated social interactions. Cameras captured nothing unusual. Their exchange looked polite, fleeting, harmless. Yet that moment, insignificant at first glance, would later be blown into a storm far larger than anyone expected. As the weeks progressed, Ryu sensed a growing wall between her and Chae-min. His eyes, once bright when she walked into the room, dimmed into a distracted haze. Their conversations grew shorter, their laughter quieter, until eventually silence became the third presence in every space they shared. And in that silence, insecurity grew roots. The night before the breakup, a fictional source recalled Ryu arriving at a late meeting with swollen eyes, her voice trembling as she confided in a friend that she could feel something slipping away. She didn't accuse him of betrayal. She mentioned Yoona, but the dread inside her chest had already begun carving a space for the truth she feared would soon arrive. Then came the morning of the announcement. Chae-min arrived at their meeting with a composure that masked a terrifying numbness. Words were exchanged, soft, careful, yet sharp enough to cut through the remnants of what they once had. They finally parted. Neither looked back. The relationship ended not with shots or accusations, but with a tragic kind of resignation. Like two people standing on opposite sides of a fading memory. Hours later, the first wave hit. A single anonymous post claimed that a breakup had ties to unseen tension connected to a senior actress. No names were mentioned. No evidence provided. Public devoured the insinuation with alarming speed. Within minutes, Yoona's name trended worldwide without warning. Every recent interaction was dissected. Every event appearance reinterpreted. Every smile reframed under a harsh, speculative light. Some insisted she had nothing to do with the breakup. Others clung to theories built entirely from imagination and timing. Online detectives crawled through past interviews, fictional behind-the-scenes clips, and vague coincidences, piecing together a narrative that grew more intense with every refresh. And while the world debated, Chae-min remained silent. That silence, more than anything, fueled the fire. Because sometimes, in a world hungry for answers, silence doesn't soothe, it provokes. And the storm that followed would change everything. The fallout erupted faster than anyone expected. As dawn broke the next day, reporters swarmed agency buildings. Staff phones vibrated non-stop. And the fictional PR teams behind all three stars scrambled to contain a narrative slipping through their fingers like water. Even so, The public only grew more ravenous. The breakup itself had already sparked waves of sympathy and sorrow. But the sudden involvement of Yoona added a volatile that pushed the story far beyond simple heartbreak. Yoona awoke to dozens of missed calls, managers, colleagues, friends, all with the same frantic tone. Sat on the edge of her bed, scrolling through messages that blurred into a dizzying mix of confusion and disbelief. Her name had been pulled into a story she had no connection to. Yet the damage was already taking shape. Filled every corner of the internet. Was there a hidden friendship? Had something occurred off camera? Why had she and Chae-min appeared unusually close at certain public events, moments that, in reality, meant nothing more than the natural courtesy between colleagues? But online, facts rarely survive the appetite for drama. Meanwhile, Da-in stayed hidden. Filled by friends who worried the noise would break her completely. She scrolled through the speculation with trembling hands, horrified at how quickly the story had evolved into something unrecognizable. She had expected heartbreak. Yes, but not chaos. Not headlines twisting the narrative. Not people dragging another woman into the ruins of her relationship without hesitation. Across the city, Chae-min sat alone in a conference room, a thick tension clinging to the air. His agency demanded a statement, but he remained frozen, staring at the phone he hadn't dared to touch since the night before. He thought of Da-in, her fragile voice, her breaking expression, and guilt carved deeper lines into his chest. He thought of Yoona, blindsided and undeserving of any of this. He thought of himself, trapped in the center of a story none of them had written. His silence had already been interpreted as confirmation. Breaking it felt like stepping into fire. Hours passed. The internet roared. Hashtags multiplied. Theories sharpened. By afternoon, swelling pressure became unbearable. Chae-min finally rose from his chair. His decision etched onto his face like a scar. He would speak. But the statement he drafted was not what anyone expected. Instead of feeding the public hunger or addressing the allegations directly, he delivered a powerful fictional message, one that cut straight through the noise. He spoke of the breakup as a deeply personal decision, free of third-party involvement. He shut down the rumors surrounding Yoona with unwavering clarity. He defended Da-in's privacy. Fans not to weaponize their heartbreak into something ugly or sensational. And most importantly, he addressed the public with a calm, steady resolve that reminded everyone why they admired him in the first place. Yet even then, the damage didn't simply vanish. Online discussions spun in different directions, some praising him, others questioning him, others refusing to let go of their favorite narrative. But slowly, he began to lose momentum. Little by little, the truth began to eclipse the chaos. Right, Chae-min walked alone through the quiet streets of Seoul. He looked up at the dim sky, breathing deeply as the city's noise softened around him. Somewhere across the city, Da-in lay awake, processing their final chapter. Yoona rested in the safety of her home, finally exhaling after hours of fear and confusion. 3 lives, once untouched by each other, connected by the aftermath of a story that grew larger than anyone intended. But beneath the wreckage, something shifted. A reminder echoed across the industry and through the hearts of fans: not every rumor deserves belief. Not every coincidence hides a secret. And not every heartbreak requires a villain. In the end, the truth stood steady, the noise faded, and the world slowly moved on. But none of them, Chae-min, Da-in, or Yoona, would ever forget how quickly a single spark could ignite a wildfire, and how fragile a human story becomes once it falls into the hands of millions. In the end, when the dust finally began to settle, only one truth remained untouched. Behind every headline, every rumor, every whisper of speculation, real people struggling to hold their lives together. Chae-min, Ryu, Da-in, and Yoona each walked away from the chaos carrying their own scars, but also a renewed understanding of how fragile peace can be under the spotlight. The world may have moved on. The echoes of this storm would linger in their memories, a reminder of how quickly admiration can turn into obsession, how easily narratives can twist, and how dangerous silence can become when the world is hungry for a story. And yet, through the overwhelming noise, a sense of clarity emerged. They had faced the blaze, endured the shadows, and stepped back into the light with the strength to rebuild. Not as characters in a rumor, not as symbols of scandal, but as people who survived a moment designed to break them. Thank you for staying with us through every twist, every shock, and every heartbeat of this emotional journey. Your curiosity and your presence mean everything. We appreciate every viewer who chooses to explore these gripping stories with us. Stay close, more untold truths, behind-the-scenes revelations, and more unforgettable narratives await you here.